Hello, everybody, and for the benefit of those listening on the audio, my name's James, and you're listening to my regular YouTube live stream, Ask James, where I welcome questions from the YouTube community on anything football related. At the moment, we're in the middle of an international break. Italy lost to North Macedonia last night. Imagine that. Happy to take questions on anything over the next hour or so. So let's get straight into it. Lin Tian Bao says, "Hi James, on Bench Boost 36, should we take into consideration the fact that it will be hard to have a team comprising three premium defenders, Salah and Kane, and still have a good bench boost? Cheers and have a good international break. Thank you very much." No, I think that's viable. I think it probably gets a little bit too tricky if you want to add, say, Heung-min Son to that. But I see no reason why you can't have a nice, balanced and decent bench boost with James, Robertson, Trent, Cancelo, Salah, Kane. That's kind of not a million miles away from where I'm at now. I think the introduction of Saka and Kulusevski as great value midfield options probably means that you're probably not going with a second premium midfielder or even a mid-range midfielder. You're going to the lower end, and Saka and Kulusevski are still towards that. So I think that's probably what will differentiate, and that's the way the template's probably going to form going towards game week 36. So I think if you can add in Son to that, makes it a little bit too tricky. It might even be quite tight if you want to go with a Luis Diaz or a Diogo Jota instead of second Liverpool defensive, for example. But no, I think that's viable. Andre Sosa says, when should we be reasonably expecting the game week 34 to 37 fixtures to be released? Okay, I'll cover that. So I presume the way that's asked, 34 to 37, you're referring specifically towards the midweek announcements rather than just the TV announcements. So the TV announcements for May, which is game week 36 and game week 37, are expected on Monday, April the 4th, which is the Monday after game week 31. I suspect it's probably not going to come that early, but probably will come that week. Whether we get the midweek fixtures to go with that, I'm not sure. And I'll explain why. I think certain ones we may get, like Villa Burnley, I've predicted maybe game week 34. I think that sort of announcement could happen. I think we could have, for example, an Everton fixture, maybe either Crystal Palace or Watford, moved into 34 or 35, for example. But certain ones you've got to wait on it. So, for example, the Chelsea situation. You cannot know what you're doing with Chelsea and whether they're going to play. I think 34 would be too tight because that would be the week immediately after their Champions League quarter-final second leg. But if Chelsea were to, say, beat Real Madrid and beat Crystal Palace in both cup competitions, they're surely going to play in game week 35, and you're not going to know that till obviously game week 33 has been and gone. So to get the whole picture, probably after the FA Cup semi-finals, after game week 33, I think we may get a kind of half and half situation, and I think we may get the lot, but we might get things like Leeds v Chelsea is sort of left out of the schedule, for example, or Chelsea Leicester is left out of the schedule, that sort of thing. I think if they're going to go early with the midweek announcements, then I think probably Chelsea Leicester has to be penciled in for 36 or 37 surely, rather than that one being left spare. So it would probably be the Leeds fixture for Chelsea that would get left spare. That's why I also think it's the most likely game week 35 fixture for Chelsea, but there's no guarantees. In all seriousness, what they should probably do is, because they've cocked up and didn't give Chelsea a game week 25 extra fixture earlier in the season and left that midweek as blank for them, what they should probably do is wait till after the cup games, which is not what you're going to want to hear. I think for most of us who are ahhing like I am, like I'm going cold on the free hit 33 idea because I'm beginning to think I'm not too badly set for it. Then obviously we want the announcement prior to game week 33, and I imagine we're probably going to get it, but not all of it. That would be my guess at the moment. Jay Greenham says, James, do you think Spurs will get top four? I think we can if we stay injury free. Very unlikely. Lol. Come on, you Spurs. Do I think we will? No. But the ironic thing is, and this is interesting when we spoke to Adam Pritchard, our Arsenal correspondent, on COTCs, all season long, and arguably even last season as well, that his belief was that if Arsenal got top four, it would be because everybody else was rubbish, basically, rather than Arsenal being great. And I think we have to acknowledge at the moment that Arsenal are playing extremely well at the moment. And actually, Arsenal and Tottenham are look like they've got the potential to now show Champions League form for the run-in. And Manchester United, we have to consider in the conversation at the moment as well. Their next three fixtures are very good. If they can manoeuvre the difficult Liverpool and Arsenal fixtures, which are obviously only going to be 4 days apart between 33 and 34, then they're absolutely in the conversation as well, because they do have superstar footballers who can win any game of football. So the three teams really might push on towards the end, and I think I'm feeling very upbeat about Tottenham following the last few games, including the defeat at Manchester United. I think since the Everton game, the performances have been very good, and there were signs before it, although the results were inconsistent. And of course, being out the cup competitions clearly is going to favour us in terms of weekend. Like I expect Tottenham generally could win the next 5 league games, but I think similar is true for Arsenal, although the immediate fixtures for them over that same period, with sort of Chelsea, Man United and West Ham bunched into that area, look a little bit more difficult. But they've got an extra fixture to play in there as well, so it's tight. And the same might apply, Jay, in terms of Arsenal. Arsenal fans will be thinking right now they're going to do it, but are probably worried about the same. You know, if you take vital ingredients out of their team at the moment, for example, one of the centre-backs, or Thomas Partey, for example, or Saka, then same applies to them, right? So it could well be that injuries is a defining factor in the running. Certainly the advantages with Arsenal at the moment. They've got the best of the final bit of the run-in as well, I think, with Leeds, Newcastle and Everton at the end. Tottenham's last three includes Liverpool. So the fixtures across the whole 8 game weeks, I think, are quite similar in terms of difficulty. Arsenal obviously have the extra fixture in there, but that's a difficult one away to Chelsea. We've certainly got a chance. I've seen some really positive signs, particularly over the last 2 games, Brighton, West Ham, in terms of movement off the ball, control of the game. The performances of Højbjerg and Bentancur in midfield have been really good for the last few games, and Kulusevski's having a great impact on the team at the moment. So, yeah, look, I think we've got a shot. I think for the first time in a long time, Tottenham fans are going into games really expectant and confident, and that's been a long time since that's been the case. So we've got a chance, but certainly Arsenal are in the driving seat. If you ask me to nail down my prediction, I do think Arsenal will get it. And that's been my opinion, to be honest, probably dating back to late December, I think, is when I was first saying I think Arsenal will do it. Ola Stamos says, hello James, any opinion about bench boosting 33 for people without wildcard? Yeah, decent. It depends how you've landed off the back of 30, right? So it feels, from what I'm seeing, that for those who free hit it in 30, they're probably in a better position to manoeuvre that, because they've got less of Wolves, Leeds and Aston Villa, and those 3 teams obviously all blank in 33. So obviously if you're looking to bench boost in 33 and got teams from assets from those 3 teams, the priority is obviously to move those on, not necessarily this week as such, but certainly in the next couple of weeks by the time you get there. Whereas those who've perhaps ended up with, you know, double Wolves defensive, Rafinha, Coutinho, Jacob Ramsey, you're looking at it and going, oh, that's difficult to manoeuvre, for example. So it's circumstantial. Depends where you've landed. I think it's easier if you free hit in 30. I'm not ruling it out as a possibility. One of the reasons is I've landed now with 2 goalkeepers who've got doubles in De Gea and Dubravka, and I've got, to be honest, I don't have a player who has a particularly bad fixture in game week 33, other than currently I own Jacob Ramsey, who obviously doesn't have a fixture. I could move that sideways to Dewsbury Hall or something, or if obviously Trent's going to be out for a few weeks, I may sell him, and that opens up the funds to move Ramsey up to something else, for example. So I'm very open-minded at the moment. That fixture announcement's going to be quite important for me, telling Lee what the other weeks other than 36 are going to look like. I'm still leaning towards bench boosting 36 personally at the moment. But I'm moving further away from the idea of free hitting 33. I've got Ryan Fraser as well. From Newcastle. They've got one of the best doubles. I've got 2 Newcastle assets in place. I'm not desperate to dive into Leicester, who also have a good double game week, partly because we don't know where they're at the moment in terms of, are they going to go through to the next stage in Europe? What's the rotation looking like? So Leicester would be a real kind of last minute decision for me in terms of whether I invest. I'm not overly in love with anybody else's double, to be honest. I've got a couple of Arsenal as well. I've got Tottenham attacking assets who Tottenham basically probably have the best single fixture in 33. And the only reason I say that is obviously Tottenham go first. Whereas in the case of City, Liverpool, Chelsea, you've got to manoeuvre the FA Cup semi-final first before they play their single fixture, which that makes the bench boost quite dangerous in terms of you got players who may have to avoid injury and rotation and stuff like that. So I don't think it will be bench boost for me. But I may not free hit either. I may just run through the week. But no decision is made yet. A couple of weeks ago I was certain I would free hit in 33. But I'm going a bit colder on the idea. FPL Lighthouse says, if you could have one job not connected to football, what would it be? We got asked this on a Patreon pod recently. And I think I said I'd probably be a therapist, actually. I'm good with people. Joe Finney Batter says, afternoon, James. How long do you think Southgate will be in the England job for? And who do you think will be the next England manager? I don't think Gareth Southgate's going to be going anywhere anytime fast. I wouldn't even be surprised if he was still the England manager come 2028, actually. Look, his tournament record, semi-final and final, is great to what we're accustomed to and expectations as a nation. We know we have a decent team at the moment. But I don't see Gareth going anywhere. I think the players like him, that's important. I know he has his favourites, but I also think he's not frightened to throw in. I know there's a lot last, he likes his favourites. And people were complaining when he threw Saka in, but Saka was really good for England, right? So I don't think he's not afraid to throw new boys in there and stuff as well. We've got some promising talents. Although the pool doesn't feel like, I don't look at the under-21 squad at the moment. I think it's blessed with some of the talents that it has been in recent years. And I think England fans should be conscious of that. That might be a problem coming up. In terms of who would be next, well, because I don't think Southgate's going to go anywhere anytime soon, I think it's really difficult to predict. I think Potter would probably be pole at the moment. I think Cooper at Nottingham Forest is one to keep an eye on. He did well at Swansea. He's really upturned the fortunes of Nottingham Forest. He likes to play a back three generally. Can manoeuvre that and play a back four as well. So he would be an outside shot that might not be on people's radar at the moment. I see England wanting to stay with English coaches, ideally, going forward. Ethan says, have you tried the revived prawn cocktail Wotsits? They are absolute fire. No, I haven't, but I've had them before. I'm sure I have. And they're great, yeah. Love a Wotsit, mate. I'd go for salt and vinegar Wotsits as well. Why has that never been a thing? Andy Martin says, afternoon, James. Do you think there will be rotation in game week 31? And is it Chelsea most likely to rotate in the league from here until the end of the season? In theory, yes, it is, Andy. But I don't think Chelsea can afford many bad results as such. Chelsea don't have bad fixtures towards the end of the season. But I did have a glance just before I started the stream, actually. And they're only 4 points clear of Arsenal. Now, that's fine. But obviously, if Tottenham keep winning games as well, then a little bit of pressure might surmount. Now, I imagine, like most of us do, that Chelsea will lock in third. But suddenly, if Arsenal go to Stamford Bridge and win in 33, then in theory there's only 1 point between the two teams. Now, if Tottenham are 1 games in between then as well, I don't think they can afford to be. So that's worth keeping in mind at the moment. I think as well, Andy, that Chelsea have been rotating anyway. Like, it's really difficult to pinpoint what Chelsea's first choice 11 is. I think, like, if everyone's available, we know Reece James will play wing back. We know Rudiger and Silva will play. We know Mendy will play in goal. But then in front of that, it gets a bit murky. Havertz his first choice, but do they want to save him for the Champions League? So yes, but I don't think they're alone in that. And I think Liverpool and Man City are going to rotate as well. You look at City's schedule, Andy. So what have City got? City have got after Burnley. They've got Atletico, Liverpool. I mean, what does that mean for the Brighton and Watford games afterwards, which look great on paper, and Leeds after that? What does that mean if City do beat Atletico as well, do beat Liverpool in an FA Cup semi-final? So I think they're liable to it as well. Liverpool got 5 great forwards now. Certainly rotation in the midfield areas. Again, defensively it feels easier to read with Liverpool. But I think all the top teams, anybody with any form of cup involvement could still be rotating. The West Ham suddenly start giving up on the league. I mean, if they play for the rest of the season like they played at Tottenham, then they're not gonna get anywhere near fourth, are they? And they may even lose a European League spot for next season. It's completely understandable if they would prioritise the Europa League. So I think there's a danger for any team that's still got any cup involvement. Whereas you look at like Tottenham, Arsenal at the moment, for example, and Manchester United to a slightly lesser extent, and you think, well, they'll pick their best team for almost every game left, barring injuries at the moment. Dylan Farrell says, hi James, has there been a better player on the international stage relevant to their team's ability than Bale over the last number of years? What a fucking player. I'm still annoyed with Mourinho for the way he used him. There's still some rumours floating about that he might come back to Tottenham again, which is a no-no for me, personally. But I did hear a really valid point to the idea that actually, even if you just used him for the 15 games a season against teams who sit deep, where Gareth hasn't got to do a lot going backwards and can just provide those individual moments of brilliance for you, then you can still get use out of him. I just feel like Tottenham are way too structured in what they're doing under Antonio Conte now for that to work. But then, you know, people always talk about backup for Kane. What about Gareth Bale as a backup for Kane? I mean, and from that perspective, I don't mind it as an idea. In terms of his impact for Wales, well, I mean, Welsh fans will know better than me, and they can probably correct me if I'm wrong, but he's got to be the greatest Welsh footballer of all time now, surely. Must be. In terms of his impact and what he's done for that nation. If he gets it to the World Cup as well, because they've never been in one since, 1958 World Cup, then, I mean, it's a phenomenal achievement. For what we have to remember is a small country, really. So, yeah, absolutely outstanding. And really pleased. I loved his interview after the game last night. I didn't watch the game, but I've obviously seen the goals and stuff. You won't take the ability out of him. The rest, you know, he said himself that he probably shouldn't have played as long as he did last night. The idea was probably to play for an hour because he's seen so little football at Real Madrid. But yeah, absolute superstar for the Welsh. Darren Malloy says, hey mate, hope you're doing well. Is it true David Alaba is still wandering around Cardiff's stadium trying to find Bale? Possibly, mate. Neil Thompson says, afternoon, I hope you enjoyed a break from Suj and FPL next week. Looking forward to the audiobook content. I'm glad, Neil. Thank you. Yeah, it's something I'd been wanting to do for a while, and you patrons didn't come up with any suggestions that I deemed good enough for a full week's worth of content. So I'll talk about what I'm going to do for the audiobook content for patrons before I finish the stream at the end. I'm looking forward to it too, Neil. I hope you will all enjoy it. Rhino's Leeds says, afternoon, James. Do you think Leeds were right to sack Bielsa when they did, or had he built up enough credit in the bank to get the chance to turn it around given the easing of fixtures and injuries? Certainly it went your way at Wolves last week. I think you know that. With the red card changed the game because I think you weren't going to get anything out of it as it stood at the time at 2-0. You could have been more down at half time. I don't think we can really understand the answer of was it right to get rid of Bielsa until probably we know where Leeds are at in sort of October, November. Obviously you've got to manipulate the rest of this season, and there's nothing to say that Bielsa's Leeds wouldn't have beat Norwich or even performed better and won at Wolves. The next two games, as Andy said on COTC a few weeks ago, are obviously going to be critical. Win the games against Southampton, Watford, and that's it, you're safe. Fail to get any points from those two games, and then the 3 or 4 fixtures afterwards are quite scary, and then teams are probably going to catch you up. So I think it's too early to say. As we covered on that pod that we did the week after he got sacked, like, I completely understand the emotion behind how Leeds fans feel and why they didn't want Bielsa to go, and what I saw in the Villa game was depressing. I don't think I'd ever seen Leeds be that bad. I don't think they could have been that bad under Bielsa. That said, they could have been better and lost 5-0 maybe. So I think we need to give the new manager a chance to see what he can come up with over a longer period of time. And I don't think we can define that for a while. I think if there wasn't such a bond between players and, manager and supporters, then the reality is he probably would have got sacked quite a bit earlier, I think. He was stubborn about a lot of things, wasn't he? You know that in terms of, even like down to the fact when you played Arsenal in December, you should have got a game called off. The state of that team and what other teams were getting game called off. And it's all well and good being principled, and if you go down by a couple of points, and that's part of the reason why, he's part of fault. I mean, he's also been stubborn in terms of turning down certain signings, I believe, been offered to him. You'll be more in the clue about Leeds than I am, but I don't think we can say for certain yet. Jamie Shea says, "Hey James, I'm hearing so many stupid opinions about West Ham saying they want 150 million for Rice. Obviously, this may change if he wants to move, but please speak some rationale and sense about the situation." Well, of course, 150 million is obviously way over the top, but I think I don't blame West Ham for setting that valuation. They're trying to send a message to all the other clubs that Declan Rice is not for sale. That's what you do. You don't put a price tag there and go 100 million, and there's a few teams look at that and go, yeah, shit, we'll pay that. So that's why you're seeing 150 million being mentioned. So I wouldn't read too much in that. That's just probably West Ham releasing that themselves into the media, say, bash this figure about, and that's enough to put people off. And if West Ham stand firm on 150 million like Tottenham did last year with Kane, then he probably won't leave in the summer. Bart Spillers says, worth it to go Reguilon to Cancelo this game week or wait? Good question. We're not expecting Sessegnon back till the end of April. So Reguilon should be okay for the next few game weeks. There is always a little bit of a danger, as you saw late in the West Ham game, and as I suggested prior to game week 29, that he could even play Doherty left wing back and Emerson at right wing back. I don't think Conte's big on Reguilon. That's the impression I'm beginning to get. But no, I probably wouldn't move that either, to be honest. That sounds like Cancelo FOMO to me. 33 have got exactly the same fixture. Tottenham have got Villa in 32. Cancelo's got Liverpool, and obviously 31. They've both got decent fixtures. Tottenham home to Newcastle. Excuse me. City away to Burnley. Mass gain in Cancelo at that point. Could Reguilon outscore Cancelo over that period? Reality is, yeah, he could. So no, I'd probably more upside in just rolling at the moment. For a hit, I wouldn't do it. James Johnson says, "Hi James, with a free hit 33 and bench boost 36, or the other way round, what provides more upside for people looking to be aggressive and chase leagues? Forget about original team, just upside on the chips." Upside on the chips for me still would be free hit 33, bench boost 36, that way round. Because I think in terms of the upside, if you gamble on the doublers in 33 and it goes well, the upside's really there, because a lot of people are going to be really content to hold their single game week assets. Whereas to get the gain in 36, I still think you probably need the bench boost or the triple captaincy. So that way round still for me, 33 free hit, 36 bench boost personally. Dan L says, "Hi James, hope you're well. Tell me in your..." don't call me an expert. Are the gas going up? Dan's referring to Bristol Rovers. Dan, I'm not an expert, but I can tell you that yes, Bristol Rovers are going up, mate. RW Chris 1983. "Hi James, hope you're well. If you had 2 free hits remaining, but were not particularly convinced about using one in game week 33, would you use it anyway because of lack of decent options elsewhere, game week 36 or for free hit 2? Again, it's dependent on, maybe Chris, you're sitting there with no bench boost, for example, so yes, probably. I'd be conscious of the possibility of a 35 suddenly having some doubles that we're maybe not expecting to drop there. So, for example, could we end up in a position where 35 suddenly has Villa v Burnley, Leeds v Chelsea, and Watford versus Everton? And then in that case, you might look at that and go, well, maybe 35 might be a decent option for free hit. It's worth saying, fixtures for the big sides not that bad that week either. Liverpool got Newcastle, City got Leeds, Tottenham have got Leicester, Chelsea would obviously then be a double. Arsenal go to West Ham is one where I think you go, okay, right, I can lay that down for that week. But what's that then? 3 assets at the most. So this is why I'm saying I'm really open-minded about it. Like, I don't think that will happen in 35 in terms of, say, 6 teams doubling suddenly. But I'm aware of it being a possibility. I'm aware at 37 might be bigger than what I predicted on Monday's pod, simply by moving Villa Burnley back into 37. I think that would make me want a free hit in 37 personally. So I'm very open-minded about it. Obviously, remember, you can't free hit in consecutive weeks, so you can't free hit 36, 37. So there's that to ponder in terms of what you're doing going forward. So I probably, yes, would still use it in 33. FPL Finding Glory says, afternoon, James. Interesting new look. Is that a Hugo Boss suit? For the benefit of the audio listeners, Finding Glory is referring to Nico, our new video editor, who has mocked me up looking like a complete idiot in the thumbnail for this video, which I'm absolutely game with. The question is, would value your thoughts on how you would play 8 game weeks with all chips in place except the triple captaincy. Thanks, and thanks for the brilliant content. You're very welcome, mate. Again, we need fixtures, don't we? But I think everything left but bar triple captain, I would probably be penciling in my mind free hit 33, wildcard 35, bench boost 36, free hit 37. That's what I'd probably be penciling in my mind, with the flexibility to be able to move that, i.e. wildcard 34, free hit 35, being prepared to be flexible with it. It might even be that free hit 38 is where some people land. I'm sure that's where some people will end up going in the end. Matthew Halliday says, hi James, which double game week 33 defender would you buy from only one of Burnley, Leicester, Manchester United and Leicester with a free transfer if you're already starting Dubravka? Matthew, I'm going to assume that one of them Leicesters was meant to be Newcastle, and in which case the answer would still be Newcastle. 2 home fixtures. Sai spoke really well on Thursday about the block of 3 home games that Newcastle have. Wolves first in 32, then Leicester, Crystal Palace. Those 3 home games finished the job and put themselves in a position where their running is tough, but they may even be able to look at the top half and swing at it. So Sai suggested they'll really prioritise those 3 home games. So honestly, even though you had Dubravka, I'd probably still Newcastle. Burn, Fabian Schär, really cheap, budget options, highly likely to start all the games at the moment. Schär is a little bit more concerning because he seems to pick up the odd injury, and to be fair, Burn has historical of that as well, but it would be a Newcastle player for me, mate. Leicester now with Evans, Fofana, Castagne and Justin all back. That's a whole new back 4 has become available from. That's suddenly muddied really badly as it stands. Burnley, I can't make the case for a me or Tarkowski or Connor Roberts being better than Schär or Burn at the moment. Manchester United, not worth the money. Dallow's the one, but you had a little period where Wan-Bissaka played a couple of games recently. That could happen again. So it would still be a Newcastle player. Rhinos Lead says, who's the best captain in 32? Because I'm still thinking it's Salah. Were he not on pens, or were he a forward rather than a mid, it'd be different. Penciled in my mind at the moment for 32 is Harry Kane. It's an away game at Aston Villa, and I think just the fact that it's away just psychologically puts people off. Harry Kane has scored more away goals in Premier League history than home games, and I think that's by around about 15 or so. I've long been advocating for the whole 5 years that we've done this podcast that Harry Kane's returns away from home are as good as at home. So Villa away for Kane at the moment is the most likely for myself. That's the plan. Again, very open-minded and flexible to that. It might even be like Saka at home to Brighton. I'm quite open to ideas, to be honest. Very open with it at the moment. I wouldn't rule out Salah. Absolutely would not rule him out at all. But current thinking at the moment for me is Kane. Tahar Sufi says, target Burnley if wildcard in 35. Potentially a third double in 34 and Norwich in 32. So, yeah. This is where I think you're looking at double Norwich, double That's what we know, and then possibly another double, and therefore, yes, it's difficult to overlook the likes of Weghorst. I think for those who got Jimenez, go to Weghorst, don't they? I think, even if you don't like it, because of the possibility of that, and okay, even if it's not the final double, then fine. The single fixture for that week is Wolves at home. It's not a disaster. They've actually got Watford away in 35 as well. So, I think Jimenez owners will probably end up going to Weghorst. I think for those who, and this won't be many, have a goalkeeper issue at the moment, we'll look at Nick Pope. Like, I think if you were wildcarding now, you probably would go with Nick Pope as the defensive one you'd want to go for, worth paying the extra, in my opinion. But I mean, in terms of physically targeting them, no. I've got Weghorst anyway. The reason I held Weghorst was because I originally thought Burnley-Everton would probably land in 32. And to go back to Rhino's previous question, I was looking at a potential 32 double of Norwich away, Everton at home, and going, well, that's who I'll be captain in 32. Yeah, let's go that way again. So he's sitting there, and I'll obviously play him in the double. I'll play him against Norwich. And again, he's got double 33. It's another thing to potentially say, okay, do I need to free hit in 33 if he stays available? So I think it's landed for me. I don't intend to add anything else from Burnley. And I think if your team's well set, you shouldn't go out your way for them. It's the case of doubles is what's enticing, isn't it? But reality is still Burnley. Reality. Owen Wilson says, hi James, have bench boost and free hit left, weighing up whether to free hit 33 or 37. Have 4 players who double in 33. What do you think? Would it be better playing? Do you think pre-33 will know how 37 looks? Kind of covered both of these already, mates. I'm not going to go over them again, but thanks for the question. To cover in terms of the amount of doublers, this is a regular question. How many doubles do I need to have in 33? Well, there's no set amount. It's dependent on who and what are the single game week players that you have around it. If you're sitting there with Kane, Son, Cancelo, Trent, Robertson and Salah, fine. What's that? How many players did I say there? A few anyway. Certainly a few. 5 or so. 6. What would that leave? 5 doublers. It's fine. 5 doublers is fine. In 33. Absolutely fine. Ash says, let's take a moment for Italy. That's long enough. Wow. I was playing football last night. Got a lift back to the station. Was waiting for a train. And I saw someone post like a North Macedonia flag. And to be honest with you, I forgot that Italy and North Macedonia was even playing. Forgot the qualifiers was even on. Looked at the phone and I couldn't. And to see the amount of efforts they had in goal, the majority of them blocked, admittedly. And when the goal came, 92nd minute, oh my God, what a way to go. That's a staggering statistic that Italy haven't played a knockout game since they won the competition in a World Cup in 2006. And it gets worse when you consider the only knockout games they've won since reaching the final in 1994 is the last 16 game in 1998. They lost to South Korea in the last 16 in 2002, and then obviously the 2006 run. It's unbelievable. And for me, they were the best team at the Euros last year. They were my tip pre-tournament, and I think they were great. They were a pleasure to watch, actually. I think it's a shame for the tournament. Like, it's funny, don't get me wrong, but I think it's a shame for the tournament. I always feel like I would like the major nations to be there, but then the other part of me obviously thinks it's obviously great for other nations to get a chance. But you know that Italy qualifying for a major tournament would be a live runner to potentially win the thing. From an English point of view, you can look at it and say, oh, England have got a slightly better chance now Italy are out. Yeah, that's true. But generally, I'd probably still rather Italy were in the competition. I want all the best to be there, really. It's the World Cup. It's the biggest global stage. You want the best there. Which I realise also is quite contradictory when you've got the best who try and qualify for the Champions League demanding that they want to be there every year. But then I also think a World Cup is only every 4 years, so it is a little different. And they didn't qualify for the last one. Sandeep Sahota says, hi James, hope you're well. I have 2 free hits. Use one for this game week. Can't see that personally unless you've landed really badly, which you may have done because you might have loaded up on too many assets that are playing in game week 30. Wolves and Villa play each other isn't enticing. Leeds have Southampton at home. Arsenal have a decent fixture. Tottenham have a decent fixture. West Ham have a decent fixture. So it depends how you've landed. Personally, I don't see that. But you might be sitting in a really bad position. If you are, I'd say, and you think, oh, I'm in a really shit position this week. Well, the chances are you're going to be in a really shit position the week after as well. So I'd get rid of the players, personally. GF says, hi James, Burnley unannounced double game week expected to be 34 or 35. So I'll explain the theory that I discussed on Monday's pod is that I think 34 is slightly more likely, and by the way, I don't have more than, say, 30% confidence in this, so it's actually more likely I'm wrong than right. They play Burnley in 36 anyway, so to schedule them twice to play each other in 4 days or so, we spoke about this, I think, for the integrity of the league, because Burnley is still trying to stay up and Villa have nothing to play for. I don't think that's right, which I also think makes 35 less likely. Now, the obvious solution is to put the fixture into game week 37, but it's worth remembering that Palace are scheduled to play Villa in 37, and you may need to move Palace's fixture with Villa into 37 because of Palace's involvement in the FA Cup. You couldn't move it to 36 because Villa will have to play Liverpool. You can't move Liverpool to 34 or 35 because they're in the Champions League. That may change if Liverpool lose to Benfica. We don't expect them to. It's complicated. So I think 34 is probably the solution. I think if it is 34, then there's every chance we'll find out in the next, certainly 14 days before game week 32, I would imagine. But in theory, yes, it could be 35, it could be 36, it could be 37. I just think for the integrity of the league, they should not be playing each other in consecutive games. Therefore, I think because Palace are still in the cup, 34 is more likely than 37. From my own perspective, I want it in 37. I would like it in 37 because I think then that, as I said, that makes the decision for me to go, yep, I'm free hitting in 37 then. That would swing it for me. So I want it in 37. I think it's probably going to be 34, personally. But I don't have more than 30% confidence in that, to be honest. Who's next? Ross Johnson. Name a five-a-side chocolate team. Boost has to be on the wing, surely. I'd have a Whisper. A ghost in behind the back line. But it's just called Whisper. It's recycled chocolate. Well, doing my bit for the environment then, aren't I? Yeah, I want a Whisper in there. I want a Galaxy in there. I want a double decker in there. Get a craving for them about once a year. It goes on for about a week and then it goes. Same matters with Dr. Pepper. Why is that? About once a year I go, oh, I fancy a Dr. Pepper. Then the next time I'm like, oh, I fancy another one. Then I don't drink it again for a year. Why does that happen? I can't explain that. How many have I got there? Whisper, Boost, Galaxy. The one you said can go in. We will have a Boost in there. That's fine. God, I need another chocolate. There's like fucking loads in the world, James. Just think of a chocolate. I'll have the whole Celebrations box in go. Owen Wilson says, also, how would you grade every Spurs signing since last summer? I think on the whole they've been pretty good. Since last summer, what do you want? Like school gradings? Okay, let's say Galini, I'll go for a C because he's better than what we had, but also shit. Romero, B at the moment, but likely to become an A. I think B because we didn't see much of him in the first half of the season, to be honest. And obviously got red carded in Conte's first game and then injured straight afterwards. So Conte didn't really have him at the start, but he really looks a prospect. Emerson Royal, C. I still think it was important that we bought someone in that position. It's just not really worked out. I think he's a full-back rather than a wing-back. That's part of the problem. Bentancur, B at the moment. Again, much improvement on what we had. I don't think he was good at Old Trafford, but he has been good in the games either side of that. I thought he was absolutely brilliant on Sunday. Arguably man of the match. Really good. Who else we got? Kulusevski. I mean, to be honest, his impact from when he's walked in the door being A at the moment. The way he's come in and impacted that team. Who have I missed? I feel like that's it. Is it? Is that it? Have I missed someone? I'm trying to think. No, I feel like that's it, I think. There you go. Martin Boyle says, nice thumbnail for the stream. I'll tell Nico, he'll appreciate that. Taha says, 3 decent strikers for bench boost 36. Can't afford Kane. Afford Kane. The thing is, Harry's double in 36 is not great, right? But before, so this is what you've got left for the rest of Kane's season. And he's now back to as good as he's ever been for him, in my opinion. Newcastle, Villa, Brighton, Brentford, Leicester, double, Burnley, Norwich. Fucking hell. You just get Harry Kane. Okay, budget options. We'll work with it. You're not going to go. Arsenal, Lacazette, too expensive in my opinion. Villa, I think there's a case for Villa because, let's say you're wildcarding to build up to it. If you're wildcarding 34, you could have, and this is what I'm maybe thinking with someone like Watkins, you could have double 34 of Leicester, Burnley, Norwich 35, then double 36 Burnley, Liverpool, Palace 37. Sell for someone else in 38 when they go to Man City. So I think Watkins would have to be on radar for the time that you might be looking to set up for it. Chelsea is a no. Palace, arguably Mateta, the way it is at the moment. And it is a good double. Watford, Everton. But then I'd probably want to more, at that point, invest in the likes of Zaha, for example. Everton, Calvert-Lewin, Richarlison. Leicester, Iheanacho or Daka if Vardy are injured. If you can't afford Kane, you ain't affording Vardy, I don't suppose. So I'm going to say no. City is nothing there. Obviously, Liverpool is nothing there. Tottenham, you're not having. West Ham, Antonio, it's okay. But the fixtures, 37 or 38 rather, they go to Brighton. 37, they might blank if they have a double 36. Wolves, if they double 36, is going to be Chelsea, Man City. So I mean, you don't want any of that, do you? So the answer there really is, the way I see it possibly being for myself at the moment is something like Kane, Watkins, Mateta. I can see it being something like that at the moment. The chances are when it comes around, especially if I don't free hit 37, I'm going to feel obliged, I think, to punt one of Calvert-Lewin or Richarlison in reality, which is potentially going to cock up the budget as well. Like, to go back to one of the first questions about fitting in them premium defenders, you look at a Richarlison or Calvert-Lewin, it might mean one of them needs to get sacrificed. Jonathan says, hi mate, all the talk and loving today is about Gareth Bale, and rightly so in my opinion. Some even saying he's the best British player ever. Who do you think is the best British player ever? All the best. My God. That's really difficult because I can only go off the stories and the minimal footage I've seen of anything pre-1990. So I think since 1990, you're looking at it probably needing to be an English player. So I think, look, Bale's impact for Wales means he should be up there. But then we're also talking about him, what, one major tournament semi-final, one major tournament last 16. Is that enough? But then I think, to be honest, the answer in the recent modern history you're looking at people like Rooney, Beckham, Gascoigne. Is Bale worse than any of them players? No, not particularly. Gascoigne should have been the answer, but injuries and off-field stuff led to the fact he got nowhere near the England caps that he should have. But I'd have to be honest, Jonathan, and say, yeah, it's fair to put Gareth Bale in the conversation. In terms of best ever, I said earlier, he's probably best ever Welsh player. To then throw in the great sort of Scottish game, English game, and then even you want to throw in Northern Ireland, I mean, there's a case to say that the right answer here might be George Best. I think that's the answer my dad would give you, would be George Best. Dan L says, now a FPL question, are there any other options to replace Jimenez other than Weghorst? I feel it's a trap. It probably is, Dan, but as I explained earlier, I think it's probably the sensible call. Double, Norwich double, then maybe another double. And if you're running through, it's Watford 35, Villa 36. It's not even disastrous, is it? So I think, yeah, he probably is the call, mate. Ryan says, hi James, who have you voted for in the Premier League Hall of Fame? If you have voted at all, I haven't. Personally voted for Aguero, Company, Terry, Scholes, Rio and Peter Schmeichel. Cheers. I haven't. I feel like there's way too many names being put forward too early. I feel like to make it a proper Premier League Hall of Fame, in all honesty, let's put like one person in a year, I think. What are you going to do in 15 years? We've got everyone in. Oh, let's put Pape Cissé in because he scored a great goal at Chelsea that one time. I mean, you want to make it a proper Hall of Fame, one or two players a year. It's like way too many nominees to me at the moment. The players that you mentioned are all fine to go into a Premier League Hall of Fame. I mean, no one really wants the racist in there, but I can't argue that he's probably the Premier League's best ever central defender. No. I think they've diluted it, and I think they could have made a far bigger deal with this, personally. Sean McNamara Guian says, love the pod, James. If Trent's out for Watford, thoughts on bringing Johnson in for him and going Bowen to Son? I think that's fine. Yeah, to be honest with you, I'm possibly looking at something maybe similar, Sean. I don't think it's going to quite work for me for Son, but I might manipulate a couple of moves that then means Sonny comes in for me. I'll be very honest with you. I've not thought about it much because I know it's the international break. I'm sure someone in my squad's going to get injured, or I'll get the Trent confirmation. I'm not going to waste too much time thinking about it because I know there'll be a press conference. I'm not making an early transfer beforehand, and I'll have some Trent information before next Saturday's deadline. So for me, it may even be a case that if he's out for Watford and possibly available for Man City or Man United, then I maybe even keep him. Particularly in my case where I'm possibly leaning into maybe no chips 33. Okay, fine. If he misses out, I've got a bench, for example. So it might even be that he stays for me. And that's not overly on value because I only got Trent at sort of 8. I had him obviously at the start and then I sold for a while when he got injured. And then I didn't get back till he was 8. So it's not even that I'm a million ahead in value. I'm not bothered about that. Because if he's out for a couple of weeks, I'm probably selling at 8.2. I'll probably be buying back at 8.3 or so. So, I'd sell. That's fine. I'm just not sure I want that to be part of 2 transfers. When there's 2 transfers I can use elsewhere is possibly more the point. But in principle, yeah, if he's out for a few weeks, Trent to a Johnson and then a Bowen to a Son's fine. All you got to consider with that is how you going back. But obviously you're saying you're wild carding in 34, so you can obviously get him back then. I think that's fine. SK says, go safe with Foden or go Mahrez. How long's a piece of string, mate? Mahrez, if he played every week, would be in everybody's team. But the thing is with Mahrez, you could get him in and you think, he's missed one or rare, and then he don't play for like 3-4 league games. That definitely won't be the case with Foden. So Foden for me. Theodore says, hi James, what are your thoughts on Erik ten Hag? My thoughts are that it's beginning to look like going to be the next manager of Manchester United. I think he's a skilled operator. I think we'll probably see a 4-3-3 from United going forward if he takes the job. I think he will need time because I'm not convinced that anybody who's going to play high intensity off the ball football is suited to be manager of Manchester United until they get a lot of those players out of the football club, because I'm convinced more than the managers, it's some of the players can't adapt. I think United have invested. They've obviously made some great signings like Bruno Fernandes over the last couple of years, but they've made some bad ones as well, let's be honest. So I don't think Ten Hag doesn't go in there and make Manchester United a team that's going to challenge for the league next year. He may go in there and make them challenge for the league in 3 years, possibly even 2 years, if you get a drop-off in City and Liverpool's level. But he's such a long way up to those two at the moment that it's going to take some time. I think the majority of Manchester United fans understand that at the moment. But he will need time. Pochettino would need time. If you want the immediate, then maybe you are going for someone like Enrique. I wonder if, and interestingly, Italy's defeat last night might mean that they look at replacing Roberto Mancini, and I think Mancini's top drawer personally. I know he managed City previously, but knows the league and stuff. I think United could do worse. I don't know how well that would go down, but they could do worse than Roberto Mancini. Possibly suit the current style better, actually, in terms of personnel. But I think Ten Hag would be a fine appointment. The thing is, we've got no way of really knowing. The problem with United is we've got so many egos, right? Pochettino's found this problem with PSG. And the main success Pochettino had at Tottenham was he had all these young players. I don't think Pochettino coming back to Tottenham would be right. If Conte walks out tomorrow, I'm sure Pochettino will be the next Tottenham manager. But I don't think that's the right solution for Tottenham because a lot of those players are older now. They've seen the way he works and probably think differently and want to learn new things. I think they got bored of the way that he wanted to play and how hard he was working them till Mourinho let them just do what they wanted and they realised they wanted Pochettino back. But that's another story for another time, or a story I've already done in the past. We don't know how Ten Hag's going to handle the egos, the big names, or how he's going to handle the Premier League. Reality is he's done an absolutely outstanding job at Ajax. He's done an outstanding job with a team in the Dutch league. How does that equate to the Premier League? There's no way of knowing. He might come in and be magnificent. He might come in and look out of his depth in 3 months. But I think of the candidates, in fact, it doesn't even matter what I think of the candidates. It's who it looks like the manager is going to be. I'd have been quite happy if he'd become Tottenham manager last summer. Put it that way. So I don't think it's a bad appointment. But after what Tottenham had this time last year, there was a different expectation level around Tottenham in terms of actual style of football was going to be more important than anything else originally last summer. Whereas Manchester United, it always has to be the goal of being the best team in the country. Who will know? Neil Kager also loves the YouTube thumbnail. Nico will be delighted. Sean Mira says, who do we prioritise this week, James if fit or Cancelo? Cancelo for me personally. The fixtures there right in front of you, and I think less liable to rotation than James personally. Damien Rozowski says, hi, ask James. Hello, Damien. When was the last time you went to a waterfall to have bath? There are many in Wales. Go, man. Listen, every time I step foot in Wales, I'm at a waterfall because it's always fucking raining, mate. When was the last time I've never had a bath under a waterfall, I'm going to be honest. I've been to Niagara Falls when I was little. That's a pretty big waterfall. D says, hello mate, choose one to manage Spurs for the next 8 years and lead them into a next era. Christian Gross, Juande Ramos or Jacques Santini. Jesus Christ. What's Ramos doing with himself these days? And the answer's got to be Ramos, I think. At least he got immediate results out of them. And the football for a few months was more fun than people remember because it ended so horrendously. Let's say Ramos. Adam says, who's winning the North London derby? Give us an early prediction. God, I mean, it's weeks away, isn't it? And a lot will depend on what I said earlier in terms of perhaps fitness and personnel of players. To be honest, right now at this moment, and you guys know I'm very negative on Tottenham, I think the vibe around the club is slowly changing for a real positive that we're going to be a very difficult team to play at White Hart Lane, I think, going forwards. So I would give us a slight edge with home advantage. If it was the other way round, I would give them a slight advantage. So fuck it, I'll back us. Alex Allegretto says, hope all is well, James. If United get Ten Hag, will it change anything? Struggle to see how. Well, just kind of covered, Alex. I don't have the answers, do we? We don't have the answer. I don't know. It could go either way. Adam says, Rooney, Kane, Bale. Rank these 3 Brits in terms of ability in all-time football rankings, in your opinion. Ability? I think it's easy to forget how good 18-year-old Wayne Rooney was. It's the best teenage footballer I've ever seen in my life. So I would go Rooney, Bale, Kane in terms of ability. In terms of all-time football rankings, we might find that when it's all over that we're putting Kane top. Possibly. I mean, if he goes on to become Premier League record goal scorer, if he wins major trophies, be it with Tottenham, another team, or, you know, imagine if he's captain of England winning the World Cup, we might be putting Kane at the top of that list when it's over. Adam says, where do you think the highest someone ranked around 500k right now could finish in FPL with one free hit, one wild card, one bench boost left, and a fine team right now which doesn't need much surgery? Anywhere, mate. You just need the rub of the green, mate. But 500k, top 100k is definitely still achievable, mate. Especially if you're set well at the moment. Yeah, listen, there's going to be a lot of people left in the top 500k got no chips left and shit, mate. You get a couple of them kind of top 500k game week ranks, soon jump from that level, honestly. So, yeah, top 100k still very difficult, but still achievable, definitely. Atul Balaji says, in your opinion, who is the worst goalkeeper in the league at the moment? Oh, wow. Worst goalkeeper I presume I've got a name of first choice. I won't use the cop out there. Worst goalkeeper in the league, first choice goalkeepers. Just having a glance through teams. I'm going to say I can't believe Fraser Forster got called up for England. It's a waste of everybody's time. Call up an under-21 goalkeeper, honestly. Although I think he's done alright the last couple of months. I'm going to go with that, though. I'm going to go Southampton. It's been a long problem that we've spoken about with them. Otherwise, I think Krul and Ben Foster have both been really good goalkeepers, but are obviously coming towards the end of their top flight careers. I don't really want to say them because it feels a bit disrespectful because of age and stuff. So I'm going to say the Southampton guys, either or, McCarthy or Forster. Joseph Robinson says he's responding to someone else. Yeah, please, Joseph, if you're going to respond to someone else, at the people that you're responding to, be most appreciated. Andres, sorry, I'm going to butcher your name, mate. Says best two goalkeepers for game week 33. I think probably De Gea and Schmeichel. And the reason I say those two is I think it's very difficult to pick defensive assets from Manchester United and Leicester right now. Whereas there are Pope alternatives at Burnley. You can make the saving of money on someone like Connor Roberts. And as covered, there are good defensive assets at Newcastle who are cheap. Burn, Share, etc. Maybe even Kieran Trippier, interesting if we think he's going to be fit by then, it looks like as well. So I think if you were free hitting, because of that, De Gea, Schmeichel, or if you're setting for a bench boost, because there are options for Burnley, Newcastle defensively that you could look at if you say you're looking to bench boost that week. And Andreas also says Sancho or Barnes for game week 33. Would lean into Barnes personally, but ask me again after game week 32. Like if you were buying now because of that, I wouldn't bother my ass and roll the transfer. Mr. Clark says, like an idiot, I've held Dominic Calvert-Lewin for the double. He's adding Weghorst to this mess a punt too far. Depends what you're selling, Mr. Clark. If you've got Jimenez, then I think it's very reasonable to buy Weghorst. Otherwise, I'm not sure I'd bother, mate. Right, let's do 3 more. Ethan Colin Bell says it's a 5-point difference, but the point you made still hold. Is it 5 points between Chelsea and Arsenal? Sorry. As a Chelsea fan, I'm still thinking we have a tiny chance at the league. Keep smoking, mate. Wish you well. Wessam A says, don't you think keeping bench boost for 36 is risky because maybe teams not playing for anything on the beach? Should we bench boost game week 33 where everyone is playing for something? Yeah, but there will be teams then playing for something, and I'll also have clarity in terms of the European games are done. You know, like maybe not done with a wild card. If I wildcard 35, I've got a good understanding of who then is exactly on the bench or a greater distance and stuff. So, and perhaps the teams you might, perhaps then Burnley look more attractive. Watford might look more attractive. Everton might look more attractive, for example. The sort of guys that might be able to be part of a bench boost because they're fighting for their lives, for example. So, listen, that's a narrative that can be spun either way, to be honest with you. My take is that 36 is best for what I want to do personally. Doesn't mean it's best for you. And Ethan also says, if City and Liverpool draw and Chelsea win out, it's only 6 points in it. Ethan, if you were chasing one of them, I would say it's not impossible. You're gonna make up 6 points on both of them, and inferior goal difference. Sorry, mate, it's not happening. Listen, as a Chelsea fan, by all means, dream and see it's a possibility. It's not happening. If you win the league, I'll do a video, personally tag you and apologise, mate. Sebo Slices, like the stream, lads. Have a great weekend, Jamesy boy. I shall. Thank you very much. Sorry for those I've not got to. I think I've been going for about an hour now. But thank you all for your contributions. Lots of stuff there that I hope's useful for those who have obviously got chips left and looking to run through. Before I finish, Suj is away, so content a little bit different next week. But I've got some great guests lined up. Tom Campbell will be joining me for Monday's main podcast. Keep an eye out for a tweet either tomorrow or Sunday morning asking for some questions. We will cover a lot more questions on this upcoming podcast. We will be pre-recording that on Sunday afternoon / evening for release on Monday. There's 2 Clash of the Correspondents for you next week. Burnley versus Everton on Tuesday with Jack Toner and Sean Norton. And they'll be telling you not to buy Burnley and Everton assets, I'm fairly sure. But we're going to put a podcast out to actually reaffirm and tell you that. Wednesday, Sky Fantasy Football for Sky players. Ian Parron is joining me on Wednesday. And we're going to go one step further in terms of potentially predicting the final game weeks of the season. Because Ian's going to try and predict them by day. Even the FPL listeners might find some of that Sky podcast quite interesting on Wednesday. Ian is a genius. He sent me a message to say... BT Sport have played this really cleverly. They may get Manchester City versus Newcastle in game week 36. And I'm like, how do you know that? And before he responded, I said, don't tell me, save it for the podcast. He is such a clever guy. If you're not following Ian, like, honestly, Planet Sky, so like Planet FPL with an I instead of an E, and SKY, like Sky Sports at the end, at Planet Sky. He's a genius, Ian. Really looking forward to having him on the pod for the first time on Wednesday. Thursday, Clash of Correspondents, Sam Murray, Mark Hammond, Brighton versus Norwich. I'll be doing this again next Friday, Ask James. We'll probably do it at a later time, probably more likely 3 o'clock, so I can cover the main key team news from your questions. And then obviously be the deadline stream on the Saturday morning, 10 a.m. UK start on April the 2nd. The following week after that, we won't do the main podcast until the Tuesday because Suj gets back from his holiday on the Monday, so there'll be a bonus Clash of Correspondence that Monday as well, and that will be Manchester City versus Liverpool ahead of game week 32 with Johnny Pringle and Dan Lord. And for those, the patrons will know, and it was mentioned earlier in the conversation, next week, Patreon content, I'm going solo and doing something very different for our intermediate and advanced tier podcast patrons. No podcast next week. It's going to be a 10-episode audiobook instead. I kept a diary of Tottenham's 2016-17 season, and it's quite detailed. And I'm going to put it out there and say it's probably going to be about, I'm going to guess 8 to 10 hours worth probably of reading. I kept a diary of it because it was Tottenham's last season at White Hart Lane, and I thought we had a chance of winning the league. And I wanted something I could keep from that. And I've never shared it with anybody, and I'm going to share it with all the patrons. Next week, there'll be 2 episodes every day, so 1 for each month, August to May. That will be as an audiobook form for intermediate and advanced tier patrons on Patreon next week. That will run from Monday to Friday. God, go and have a coffee, James, for God's sakes. Other than that, that's it, I think. It's international break. Please don't make early transfers. Players are going to get injured. If you haven't gone early yet, don't stress about Burnley and Everton, for God's sakes. Wait for some team news. And I look forward to seeing many of you on this stream next week and supporting us on Patreon if you can afford to do so. That's all for now. For the benefit of those on the audio, cue music, please, man child.